So the way that I was explaining Latinx is, since Spanish is such a kind of a sexualized language where everything's of male, female sort of terminology. I guess when you're learning Spanish, you kind of catch on to that. The majority of the terms that label people in itself are masculine rather than feminine. So Latinx, the way that I was explained, is kind of like an attempt to reverse that and be more inclusive of both women and males, and then other transgender options. I'm fine with Latina. That's completely fine with me, or even if people say Latino, I'm fine with that. It's just the way that I was raised, it was always Latino, Latina, or Hispanic. I'm fine with that too. Fine with Mexican too, generalized term for all Hispanics, that's great. Since I am Mexican, it doesn't bother me, so. So I guess the furthest thing that I remember was the reason why we came. And I guess it was explained to me a little bit more growing up, and especially now that I have conversations with my mom about it when I'm in my 20s. The reason we came was my dad had originally come to the United States when he was 16. Both of my parents were direly poor. I mean, sometimes they were one loaf of bread sharing between 11 and 12 siblings, kind of poor. So he came to the United States because he had a cousin in Connecticut that helped him out, get a job at a restaurant. He came illegally. And then fortunately, he was here long enough for the Reagan administration amnesty that opened up, and he became a resident, not a citizen, but a resident. He met my mom when he was 15, and then eventually they got married and whatnot and had us, but we stayed over, my sister, my mom, and myself stayed over in Mexico while my dad traveled back and forth, making enough income just kind of push us through. And then violence started happening a lot more often in Mexico, and my mom started getting scared just because she was alone, and we had neighbors that were just not the best of people and had weapons all around them, and she was afraid that one day they'd come after us. So the way that society works in Mexico, it's a lot more open, a lot more rural. Everybody knows everybody. So everybody was kind of safe to walk home from school. My sister's 4 years older than I was, so when I was in pre-K, I was 4 years old and she was 8. Her school was a block down from mine, and we were both blocked down from home. So she'd come stop by, pick me up, and then we'd go home together. And one day she was late, and I left by myself. And there was a couple guys standing there, and I don't really remember all too well because I was 4, but I do remember seeing a gun facing towards me, and then a person yelling at me to go away and to not say anything. So I did. I left, and I don't really remember too much of what happened. I know gunshots were fired, but my mom heard the gunshots, came out running, screaming, trying to find me. So she found me, and then that's when she kind of just drew the line. Told my dad that he either brought all of us over or he was going to go back to Mexico and stay there, stabilized and find a real job. So my dad brought us over. It was a little weird because we all went in different ways. I actually ended up going swimming, crossing the river. It was a huge group of people, and everybody was just kind of taking care of each other. And there was a guy that was leading us, obviously the coyote. And my sister came in a car, and I think my mom crossed the desert. I don't really remember how my mom did it, but we were all supposed to meet in Texas. Point being, I got lost because my grandma was the one supposed to take me, but she didn't make it. I got lost, and I was in a house with different people for several days. I remember that, and I was very scared because I thought I was going to see my parents again. Eventually, I really don't know how they found me. I'm guessing they had communications with the coyote. But they found me. And so I remember the first time that I was in a car. It was with my dad, and he was driving from Texas to Connecticut, which is where he had his little restaurant job. And it was December 25th. It was Christmas when we crossed. Oh no, it was a week after that because that's when they found me. Whatever. It was around that time, and he drove all the way to Connecticut, and it was snowing, and my mom freaked out because she had never seen snow in her life, and made him turn around and go back because she went into a panic attack. So we ended up coming to North Carolina and just never left. Oh boy. It's a little complicated. So I did eventually become a citizen of the United States. I understand the politics and stuff and whatnot, and that's what I'm studying. So I get that in the United States, the priority is to conserve the citizen in itself. Our priority should be protecting our citizens. I understand that completely. I also understand that crossing a border like that is legal, and people are fully aware that it is illegal, and they do it anyways. I sympathize with both sides. I sympathize with the need for stricter border regulations. I don't think that the border or wall thing that he's trying to create is very realistic, just geographically speaking. That would go through so many private lands and so much private property that it'd take decades to even get the permission to go through that. And then you go into like mountains and rivers and deserts, and there's already a wall there. What do you mean build another one? I think anybody that's familiar with what the border actually looks like understands that there's no need for an actual physical concrete wall when there's already fences and everything. And actually the main way that people are coming into the United States now are 1, through expired visas, or 2, through tunnels. I mean, that's the problem that we have in California and the Mexican border, is that people aren't crossing anything anymore. They're going through tunnels and smuggling drugs through tunnels. So if that's the problem that you want to address is drugs, then you're doing it the wrong way. I do understand the need for regulation for less immigration. There's a lot of talk going around about an amnesty. I don't think it's going to open just because we do have a Republican majority in both houses. Tom Tillis actually was talking yesterday about opening an amnesty that would allow people to work and allow them to be residents, but it would not have a pathway to citizenship. I would be more lenient with that. But he does address E-Verify. E-Verify is a program that's designed to punish anybody that hires illegal immigrants. I understand that they are illegal immigrants and that they don't technically have permission to be working here. But at the same time, the way that the free market works is that in order to get cheap products, you buy cheap labor. And cheap labor is provided by immigrants. The wages and salaries that illegal immigrants get paid we wouldn't even fathom living off of those wages. We're already complaining about living off of wages that are like $7.25 and wanting to raise the minimum wage. Now, if you take away those factors, for example, in the agricultural industry, the prices of our products are going to rise and we can't keep up with it. So it's very complicated. It's a very complicated matter, and just saying building a wall isn't going to fix the issue. It also isn't going to fix the humanitarian issue, because whether we like it or not, people are still up and leaving. And it's one thing to say, yeah, they're immigrating. It's another to understand that you leave absolutely everything, come here with nothing, no language, no background, hardly any family, hardly any support, and start from zero. You don't start from a low socioeconomic status like most people. You start from absolutely nothing. Like in my case, where we were living in my aunt's basement filled with mold, and it was 4 of us. I think people need to emphasize more on why people are immigrating rather than whether they are or not. What makes people get up and leave their country and their home and their families and everything for nothing? I hate taxes, that's for sure. I've worked in just about everything that you could think of. I've worked a regular high school job at Chuck E. Cheese. I've worked at Target. I've worked as a waitress. I've also worked in 2 factories. And the 2 factories that I've worked at were predominantly Hispanic. And my mom works in one of them. I actually worked with her a couple summers. And then during Christmas break, I think freshman year of college, the conditions are fine for her. And for the people that work there, they're fine. They pass inspection. It's not a good place to be because you're standing for a solid 8 hours with hardly any breaks in between. and it, like, you know, it's killed her back. Her hands from tying all those flowers together are just crippled with so much muscle tension and joint tension. It's bad. Arthritis is getting to her. But the other company that I worked at, it was a Doritos company. It's not Doritos exactly, but they call them Doritos in Spanish. And it's just packaging and labeling chips, different kinds of chips, especially like the kettle kind, something like that. Those bags that are just impossible to open. I hate those things. The conditions were awful. They were just, I mean, outside, I worked there summer, outside it was like 115 degrees, inside it was 135, with no ventilation, no fans, nothing. And we had to wear long pants and long sleeve shirts because the chips would sometimes fly out of the grease, and the grease would easily burn you. It was insanely hot. I've never worked at a place that uncomfortable, on your feet as well for 9 hours from. And they had 3 shifts, so you had the morning shift, the afternoon shift, and the late night shift. So the company was continuously working, continuously cleaning. There was one non-Hispanic person working there. Everybody else was Hispanic. And I mean, the amount that you got paid, I got paid more than most of them did because I could speak English, which is kind of unnecessary because you don't need to speak English to pack chips. But I did get paid more than a couple of them, but they've been there for 10, 15 years. I had a friend that actually got me that job. She was my mom's friend, so she's been there for 11. And I don't know how she works 11 years in a company that I couldn't last 3 months in. The amount of times I burn my fingertips is insane. But other than that, the service industry jobs. In the service industry jobs, you actually get a lot of Hispanics too in the kitchen. It's funny because I worked in American restaurants, the Honduran restaurant and Vietnamese restaurant. Everybody has a full staff of Hispanics in the back. Even the Vietnamese restaurant doesn't have Vietnamese people cooking. It's all Hispanics. So it's just interesting to see the way that we've taken jobs that basically nobody else wants. That nobody else wants to do for the amount of money that they're getting paid, for that minimum wage, for lower than minimum wage, or under the table minimum wage. There's a lot of problems with the Hispanic people, or older Hispanics, learning English. However, we tend to migrate to jobs that already have Hispanic people in them. So agricultural jobs, once again, or factory jobs, or, hey, I know this person, that knows this person, that knows this person. She'll get to a job with them, and it's mainly Hispanics. So it's very difficult to learn English when you're not forced to, or when you're not put in a scenario where you need to learn English. So all the kitchens in the back, it's all Hispanic, so you guys can all communicate. So I will say that I think that needs to improve in ourselves somehow. We need to encourage each other rather than just keeping ourselves at that level where we're just like, it's fine, we don't have to learn. In a lot of cases, I feel like we've stopped being human, almost. Like, even the way that I speak about the Hispanic or the immigrant labor force, I speak about it in an economic stance because that's the way that I've been taught to do. Like, that's the way that people want to hear about it. People want to hear that labor forces like the immigrant force lower our prices, and that they're a strong force, that they're a working force, that they work countless hours for very little money. I think that in a way people have dehumanized the immigrant labor force and don't really see the consequences of all of that and the consequences of what's happening because we work that many hours or because we're taking that little amount of money. I mean, just the generations that are growing up of kids now, we've distanced ourselves from very, very close-knit families that get together every day to eat dinner together, to kids just kind of like growing up by themselves because their parents can't afford to spend time with them. It's not that they don't want to, it's that they physically can't afford to.